What's up? Welcome back to Yellow Spandex. This is basically just going to be a whole episode of Dark Phoenix, so prepare yourself.
Spoiler City.
Spoilers.
And if you're really that worried.
Also, you've seen the extent of emotion that was shown in the movie right now.
All right, coming at you right now.
Hey, everybody. We just got back from Dark Phoenix.
What's up?
I don't know. Would initial thoughts be the good way to start? I don't know. Vince said it best. Like, the credits started rolling, and immediately after a guy yelled he wanted a refund, Vince was like, well, that was a movie. And I don't know. Like, earlier on a live stream we did at Mob Crush, I read 3 reviews of people I respect a lot. 2 of them are friends, and one is a guy I kind of don't work with but don't know personally. And they all said something very similar. It was kind of meh, and it felt like everybody phoned in, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So now, having seen it myself, I think as a sum of parts, I would agree with that. There were there were some really great points, though, that I didn't expect to see.
Yeah.
For me, first off, I had already written off Sophie Turner because I'd seen her in previous movies and stuff. I was like, I felt like they just threw her in there because of Game of Thrones. And if you're on Game of Thrones, you get thrown into sci-fi stuff now.
You can pass for any movie you want to be in.
Pretty
Right?
much.
I was like, but looking at you, Iron Fist. But I was like, I kind of liked her in this. Like, I thought she did pretty well. Like, somebody made a joke, not a joke. I thought it was a joke. Somebody made a comment that her hand gestures were one of the highlights of the movie. I mean, it didn't happen a lot, but I kind of agree. Like, there's a joke at like superheroes, like they do this so much and stuff, and it wasn't like Doctor Strange level, but for a Fox Xmen movie, it was like. I would have a crush on a girl like that in high school or college even, and then like I felt like she, as to the best of her ability in the story given to her, gave me the idea of the power level that we were dealing with, and I love Jessica Chastain. Once again, wasn't given a whole lot of material to work with. It was a little rushed, but like she was good. Everything else was like a little like I don't know what this is. Like I don't know.
It was definitely much better than I thought it was going to be. I would liken it to how I walked into Justice League, knowing that I thought it was going to be a train wreck, and coming out and being like, "Well, it wasn't as much of a train wreck. It wasn't like a nuclear waste train wreck."
Yeah, this one had that a nuclear waste train wreck,
Oh, my God.
like literally and figuratively.
So I mean, I actually enjoyed some of it.
Yeah.
I had some fun watching it. It's still not an X-Men movie to me. I mean, it's still not the X-Men to me.
Maybe that's what is like. I'm leaving like conflicted. Like wasn't like like you said, like wasn't like a garbage train wreck completely, but it just I think in the big like end chase thing, I was like, it just doesn't feel like a X-Men. Like it wasn't gathering it, especially Professor X.
Yeah. I went into this like very hesitant because of all the plethora of negative comments and reviews and just everybody saying all this stuff. I like felt like, oh man, I better like take this movie easy because I had no idea, whether it's going to be a train wreck or not. But it ended up being like a pretty solid movie as far as movies go. Like some of the things, there were more like nitpicky things, like Jean. Or no, it was Mystique. It was just like a camera shot of all of them, and it felt very forced that they had to like show off Mystique's power right then and there, and she changes back to Jennifer or whatever her face, and I was like, that felt a little forced. And then later on with Beast too, it happened again. I was like, are you transformed or are you not transformed? Like I didn't even know when. You know what I mean? It seemed a little confusing.
That was a comment I made coming out of the theater. Was like if the transformations for Beast and Mystique were in the screenplay, I don't know what the thinking was behind it, or if there was like another screenplay that had more stuff happening in it, because it kind of seemed to happen at random.
Yeah,
like without. Like, so, for a little bit, you're trying to reason, like, okay, so if she's, like, relaxed with people she knows.
or knocked out or something.
Then she's Blue Mystique, because that's the normal state, right?
Yeah.
And then if she's trying to like comfort
Hide
someone or something, make someone feel comfortable, then she's maybe. But it wasn't that way at all. Like,
No.
it just kind of felt like maybe they had to do a fill-in shot, and and they were like, "Well, we can't get her makeup, so like just throw her in this." And like,
It was weird.
and then. Did I miss it? So Josh and his daughter watched Apocalypse right before this,
Yes.
so you have it fresher in your memory.
I do.
Was there ever like a romance between Mystique and Beast ever implied?
Wasn't it in? It wasn't in Apocalypse.
Was it in First Class?
But it was in First Class.
Was
yeah.
it? I totally forgot that.
You don't remember? Like they kind of like meet and they're like flirty.
But did they ever return to that?
Well,
Like, Days of Future Past or like.
I don't feel like it's so much in the last movie.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Because okay, I guess we're getting the spoilers. Like, I mean, we already did a little bit, but like, the
spoilers, yes.
so right before Mystique dies, I think she kind of like whispered like "I love you," and stuff. And to me, it just kind of came out of nowhere. I'm like, were we just like phoning in some emotion here? I will say, and this might be me projecting, but I feel like I saw the relief on Jennifer Lawrence's face that she would never have to play this character again. Like as soon as she like died.
I read that she would only do this if she dies in it, but I don't know if that's true or not. People write crap on the internet all the time.
Well, I know like her. So regardless of what she felt like, her popularity kind of like rose and entangled with the films. Like when she started the X-Men films, she wasn't a household name.
Yeah.
She was famous, but
There's a duck over here.
she wasn't a household name, but she was still kind of famous. But then like Hunger Games like made her an A-lister like overnight, and then they changed. So like before we were watching Mystique be like kind of innocent and watching her like ascent into or descent, depending on what you think, how you see it, into like Rebecca Romijn Stamos's Mystique. Because technically they kind of started off saying they were going to like go back and then like lead up to the X-Men we knew, or the X-Men movies we knew. But then like as soon as like Jennifer Lawrence like became like a huge star, it was like, like we need to make her like the star of everything. And I don't know if she signed up for that,
That's something I really didn't like, especially in the last one too. Like, or not Apocalypse. The one before that is they made Raven. I guess they keep calling her like her human name or whatever. They made her the main person in that movie, and like Mystique had never really had like a main role in pretty much any of the stuff that I remember. Like, for me,
she was never a good guy.
It wasn't really ever like that the source material wasn't right or anything like that. I'm just saying in these movies, it was a weird choice to make Mystique like the front.
Yes,
like she kind of became what Storm was, like as far as like a role model,
Like in the original, like X1, X2, X3, I'm trying to think of who they did, like who was that in those movies. Like
I thought it was Storm. She was like a teacher. Like
I don't think she ever like stuck out more than the others, though. Like
Yeah,
Beast seemed
agree.
like pretty.
You'd have to think though that that's because maybe she, actors and whatnot, when they get to that stage when they're like, hey, I'm here. Maybe I don't want to be in this film, but you have to give me something, the reason for me to not phone it in. You know. Well, how about we make you more an integrated part of this film? Like, oh, okay, maybe, but I don't know. You've always had Mystique as like, if she was ever fighting for something that was good, it was either because it's to save her own skin, or just because two people, the enemy of my enemy is my
friend.
friend,
Yeah,
so
she's more like a vigilante than like a
at the most.
Like she's kind of like the Starscream, right? Like she she switches alliances depending on like what, like you said, serves her best, but also mutant kind. So it's almost like her and mutants, and then whatever else,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like for me, it's just weird to have Mystique at all, like this big a presence in X-Men storyline. Like anything that I've ever seen in the past, she's always been in like the Brotherhood of Evil, or she's with Mr. Sinister, or she's on her own alliance,
or the Apocalypse and like
or
the
Apocalypse
series, whatever. But
whatever serves the plot
in the
whatever.
Apocalypse movie, like she was the one that was kind of like, we need the X-Men back. This is a school. We need them to fight. And then this one, they're like, oh, no, these kids are fighting. These are kids. Like,
another thing is too that bothered me is like this is just like the small little purist that's inside of me. Like, oh, X-Men should be.
I got a
like
big
the
purist.
Yeah, I'm okay with like all this new adaptation bullshit. Like, I think it's all right. Like, I just like seeing cool things on film. Like, even if it doesn't really make sense. Like, this movie wasn't like a 10-star movie for me or anything. I'd probably give it like 5 or 6 stars, maybe.
So, in response to what you said earlier about it being a solid movie, like I'd have to disagree because I think so.
Were there big plot holes for you?
Aside from just being like an X-Men fan, I was trying to look at it without being too nitpicky. Like, okay, like if my mom went to go see this movie, and I mean that might be slight. Think of my mom as like generic. Like my mom specifically doesn't like action movies, but if a person who went to go see action movies didn't know about the X-Men went to go see it, the things that they left up for you to assume were things that only like fans would kind of like put together, right? You know, like, and they skip so much because I was trying to give it a benefit of the doubt because a lot of critics were saying like, well, one of the things that makes it not work is we didn't have the Phoenix Saga leading up to the Dark Phoenix. It just like hit in the middle of the story, you know?
It was the same way with the Last Stand. I mean, like,
which is one of the reasons it didn't work, you know? Like, and so I think like it would have, you know, like there's friends that weren't into Marvel or MCU stuff that went into Infinity War and maybe saw a couple or none of the previous movies and got invested. And then now Endgame's a completely different thing. You can't see Endgame without seeing something else. But like with Infinity War, like they got like, you know, the investment in it and stuff. And I think like with something as big as like the Dark Phoenix, like you had to rush through it. The movie was less than 2 hours long, and you went through like what in the animated series took like a half a dozen episodes at least.
Yeah, I think it took 6 episodes total.
And there's that, and like then when going back to Beast, you'd mentioned this off camera, like in another conversation.
But that was
him going back and forth, like has never really been a thing.
Never.
And I think I might be wrong again. Someone correct me. I think in a previous one of these X-Men, they had made it so like when he like injects himself with like a serum, it goes away.
Yeah.
But I don't think he had like the will to change it back and forth unless they added that later.
But was that all you had on like it not being a solid movie, or
like
was just the one thing? Or?
Just the whole movie like didn't have it let you up to like the things that it wanted you to just assume or know were things that only like fans would really know, and like that. So if you
just as like a person who doesn't know anything walks into that movie, I feel like they would say the same thing. I was like, oh, this is a pretty good movie. Like, but the thing is, like, they show you all of it. They show you Jean as a kid. They show you her struggling, and then you see the apex and then the climax of Jean's story arc.
But we didn't.
Like, we did.
We skipped from her being 8 to when she was like what? She's like maybe 20 or something. So we didn't see anything in between.
Someone who doesn't know anything just would have to just like because they don't know anything. They're like they wouldn't make the question. Well, maybe they would make the question like why did they skip that? But I don't make the question when Marvel says 5 years later. Right in the beginning, like. You know what I mean? I don't expect them to explain what happened, or maybe I do, maybe a little bit. But like same with this movie, I feel like they just kind of like gave you everything you needed to know as far as just like a movie's standpoint, not like it being an X-Men movie, not it being like any sort of emotionally driven anything. Just like as movies go, I feel like they gave. That's what I meant by like a solid movie, like
a normal superhero movie. If you're like any adult that knows nothing about X-Men or whatever. And you go like, okay, what movie do I want to see with this girl? Oh, well, how about we see this? I imagine they'd be like, all right, cool. Like after they leave, they probably wouldn't be like upset about it. It wasn't a horrible movie, but it was not like
it wasn't something that I would recommend you go in watching, not knowing anything. Because
it's like one of the when Transformers movies,
Magneto comes into play, you would have to know who that is.
So but that's one of the things I was talking about. She walks in that village, and like if you don't know anything about X-Men, you're like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Why is she walking to this village? Who
but
are these
you
people?
do understand that he's the guy who runs whatever that place is. And then, like, from
you don't
then
know
on,
why.
He's a player after
and
that.
he's asking about Raven.
And then you learn about his powers when you see him use them.
But I think that's through the lens that you already know a lot of things. Like,
not really. I'm just saying, like, as things appear on film, Like that, as a person who doesn't know anything, you just learn as things appear on film.
The reason I say that is because specifically I went with you and my brother to see Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
You guys knew a lot of stuff because you follow that. And you're like, well, you would know that. I'm like, I didn't know any of that.
But
like,
these weren't like hard references like that. They weren't like trying to fit in all these like homages to comics
for example,
and whatnot.
In Batman vs Superman, Bruce Wayne's falling asleep, and then the Flash.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was the Flash until it was explained to me later. Like
Pops
peeks
into
through
his
like
dream.
a lightning storm.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was a dream or what. I didn't know who that was and stuff. There was never referenced again.
So what would be the equivalent?
Showing up to a village where Magneto is and not knowing why she showed up there. They kind of like sprinkle throughout later like why it is, but even me knowing that was Magneto and he was there, like I couldn't quite figure out like I know that she wanted to go to him because she said like you hurt people, how did you stop?
Yeah.
But we didn't know he stopped hurting people.
To an outside perspective, all they would probably say is like she looked like she went to this place for help from this guy.
But why would
that
you
can like bend metal? But I don't know.
But why would you care about him before then if you didn't know who he was?
That's the thing is you don't. As a person that doesn't know anything, you're just going by what happens on screen. You know what I mean? So like you learn as it's being appeared to you.
I want to make it clear. I'm not going to say it's like the worst movie ever, but
Yeah.
I can't in good confidence say it's a good movie. It's not a good movie. Like it's just not.
I wouldn't say
like,
it's good. It's watchable. If you're like, hey, I have nothing else to do, and this is on TV.
I think for me, at best,
Okay.
it's a series of really great YouTube clips.
I would say it's better than that, but that's just me. Another thing that kind of bothered me too is they did just kind of skip through a lot of things. Like they didn't explain the enemy at all, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just had to accept, like even me knowing things, like I feel bad for the person that doesn't know anything.
So
Even me knowing things, I couldn't figure it out. So like
that proves my point too, though. Vuk, who is part of the Debaris. So that was another little hint. Is like, I'm not familiar with the Debari. While Josh was setting up the cameras, I was looking stuff up online to read about him and stuff. Like I cared nothing about Jessica Chastain's character, her the people she was with. Why are we caring about what they bring to it? You know, I feel like a parallel in the MCU was with the Skrulls. They didn't even have to tell that much story. They put these little points in that made me care about them enough to like follow them, you know. With Vuk, I was like, who's this random woman like who's walking around? It's like they put like an A-list actress in here just to kind of guide Sophie Turner through this thing. And so to me, I'm like watching it and like I'm spending more time trying to figure out who she is and why it matters at all, you know.
Like I knew right away that they were the bad guys. Like that was I knew right away that this was going to be the bad person or whatever, you know, the other half, and that the guys were the bad people, and the ones that and then there was and what made me care about them was the fact that they wanted to kill they would either wanted to control the Phoenix Force or kill it, because that's what destroyed their race and planet.
So when part of my reading was that they're not bad guys.
Yeah,
they're innocent. Their world was destroyed by the Phoenix Force.
Right.
So their story is supposed to be kind of parallel to the Skrulls, where they're just trying to find a new home.
Yeah.
This particular group is a little more like militant, more like a Malcolm X kind of like force.
Yeah.
But like we were supposed to sympathize with them that they lost their world and they're just trying to seek justice and repopulate the world of their world or whatever. I got none of that.
No.
Well, the big problem of that it was that the Skrulls had a personality. And they were pretty funny.
They're funny.
These guys
They are
had
funny in the
no
comics.
emotions.
So that, but
So there wasn't really like a reason
That's
to-
proving my point though about
Yeah.
this movie. It's not a good movie because for someone, if I didn't know this history about the Debari
Right.
or that they were called the Debari, they mentioned it a couple times,
Yeah, they mentioned it once.
but like. That's a portion of the movie that I didn't get, and I'm reading people defending the movie online, and they're like, "Well, the Debari, they've been through so much." I'm like, "But how do I know
Yeah,
that?"
you don't know that. And well, they do explain it, and then towards the end of the movie,
She tells the whole
she
story.
does
yeah.
But-
dialogue
it's-
a little bit.
But it's to me at least, it was the way that when she said it, I didn't care.
Yeah, it wasn't like emotional at all.
Yeah.
But even if it was, it'd feel like a
You
little
didn't
too.
feel like anything like, oh, it's, I feel for her. Like, I
Yeah.
never felt for her ever.
They also spent a lot of time on other things and a little bit of time on that. They could have maybe like equalized that a little bit more.
And there was no setup for why Professor X had his descent into selfishness and everything. Like they hinted at that he had gotten a big ego,
yeah.
but they skipped a lot. even between the last two movies, like the last movie and this one. Like, I get that they were trying to paint, like, okay, well, what is it, 10 years later or something? 10 years later? Like, now the world loves X-Men.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate that, by the way.
That is, it was...
I felt like Spider-Man 3, like, Spider-Man, everybody loves Spider-Man now. And I'm like,
It put an icky taste in my... I tried to give it the benefit of the doubt, though. I was like, okay, let's just say, like, casual ongoer, like, goes to see a movie. Sure, it's fine. But, like, they paint... There was no reason that, like, Professor X should have been, like... There's too many bad guys in this, you know. Like like Professor X was technically one of like the conflicting forces.
Yes.
Like he made like a lot of bad decisions. He was selfish, you know. Like technically, the Dark Phoenix was like a villain. Like there were
like the reason Raven died.
I don't know who I was rooting for in this movie.
I think I don't know. Maybe that was what I liked about it. It was the conflicting, or not conflicting, but everyone has their own arc kind of deal. Like, well, not everyone, just Professor, most of them. Because, like, Beast didn't have a story arc, really. I mean, he did, like, at the end there, he lost Raven, but, like, that was,
I was not
the
a
end
fan
of
of
his
that
arc.
Beast stuff.
That was rough.
I feel like it was CW. Like, you know how they kind of, like, go back and forth between, like, oh, no, I'm trying to protect you. Oh, man, I'm going to try to kill you. Oh, I changed my mind. It was too quick.
Yeah.
Like, no one ever decides that kind of crap. And if stuff like that does happen to somebody, they go, I got to sit and think about this.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't believe it.
If I wanted to sell someone on this Beast, I would have shown him the scene at the dinner table and he yelled at Xavier for like basically killing Raven. Because to me, that was that kid's like best acting in the movie. But also, like, I identified with it as like a human. I'm like, you got like, well, essentially now we know is his girlfriend killed. Even then, I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna assume it was his girlfriend this whole time, right?
Yeah.
So like,
That was weird.
So he's upset about it, and that scene kind of did it for me because at least like Xavier's like, she was my sister, you know, like, and then they were going back and forth on that and stuff. That showed me a little bit, but then like just jump right back into like some random albino woman I'm supposed to care about for some reason, you know, is running around.
Trying to think of what other things. I think Cyclops was a lot stronger this movie, just as far as his character. Like we actually got to see him fight.
I think we just got acclimated to him.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know, but
his stature isn't right. Like even in the scenes, like he's like hunched over and he's like looks small. You know, like Cyclops is supposed to be fucking all big and jacked and shit.
And I would believe that if this was the beginning, you know, to where he becomes the person that he is.
But this is supposed to be the
like,
fully
This
formed.
is supposed to be like, yeah.
Everybody
X-Men,
are like
X-Men.
old.
And even then, like,
not.
I don't feel like we don't ever get to X-Men. Like, I feel like we are just constantly going,
Also, like,
especially with the new, from
Storm
First Class
was
to this.
supposed to be like the older person.
She's supposed to be what Halle Berry is. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the age at least. And also, being a good point, Eric/Magneto is 65 in this film.
Yeah, he's supposed to be older too.
So that's another thing I'm going to take away. Like, if I presented this to somebody who's never seen the movie before, I'd have them watch this movie and then explain to me who the X-Men are. And I don't think they would be describing the X-Men. They would describe me like, oh, this really weak laser shooting guy, you know, like this. There's a like a 30-something-year-old magnet guy. I'm like, oh no, he was 65 in that movie. You're like,
Another thing was that having Mystique and Nightcrawler in the same freaking thing together, like that,
Always
just
messes with you.
like as a purist, that fucks with me because that's supposed to be his mom.
but and the age, so that's another thing. All the ages and stuff,
Like
I'm
none of this stuff at all. They took so many freaking
So
liberties.
they-
It's not even like recognizable as an X-Men thing, you know.
That was one thing that like woke me up in the middle. That scene I was talking about where they're arguing at the dinner table. He's like, "Oh, this is the room I first met Raven." I'm like, "Oh, wait, you guys are supposed to be the same age." I don't believe that one bit.
No.
Like, I totally forgot about that. That's so weird. So one plus point I will say, I'll give a little bit of credit. There are moments where Storm is who I would have liked her to be in the first X-Men movie. Once again, like you said, like at the beginning, like because she like kind of loses her shit and she just kind of goes for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, her accent was a little here or there. I love Alexander's shit, but she does not do that African accent.
At least
very
they
well.
gave her a freaking accent. Thank God.
Maybe. I mean, I could have gone either way. I either wanted to be better or just to not have it.
Because
you
in
know?
Apocalypse, she would just talked normal, right?
No,
No,
she did.
she
She had a little thing.
Yeah.
I think she had a better accent in Apocalypse.
She didn't say a lot.
But
No.
she wasn't perfect, but I think she was better than Halle Berry, and she had more of the spirit of the young Storm.
Yeah.
But that's what the problem is. Like she wasn't supposed to be young Storm. She was
No.
supposed to be like
Old Storm.
fully formed.
Well, even in the comics, like we don't get obviously when there's retcons or flashbacks or whatever, you get more information. But like the first comic that comes out, Giant Size X-Men 1, like you're just introduced to all these characters at once, and so like Storm is like older, obviously just I don't know. I feel like this team is just. It's not a team.
It's not the X-Men we know.
Yeah, and they would try to pay a little bit of homage to like some comic books in the 2000s with the outfits, and I'm just okay with that a little bit if they wouldn't have like teased the outfits in the end of the last movie.
A little bit of credit. At least they put color in their outfits. I'm trying to like
black.
I'm trying to find like little pieces of things. Like they're putting little things in there. Like
Cerebro was pretty cool. Like watching.
Yeah, I mean Cerebro's very similar to
Xavier,
what
I really liked. I'll say what I really liked. I liked Nightcrawler helping everybody out.
Yes,
that was fun.
Like at the train thing.
Yes, the train thing where he's like jumping in and out, or even during the spaceship thing.
Yeah,
like, they went into space. That's a great thing. I'm glad they went into space. They don't call it the Phoenix Force ever. I don't think they just call it something Force. And I'm not. I wasn't happy. Like oh, we're gonna they're nicknaming you Phoenix.
Dark
I'm like,
Phoenix. Yeah.
I'm like,
well, no, they didn't say Dark. They
Phoenix.
just said Phoenix.
They just said Phoenix. And
they're like, why?
Yeah, why?
And then
it's like if you're gonna go out of your way to be like, this is a force from whatever, and I'm gonna explain everything to you. Why don't you just call it the Phoenix Force?
And then when
forced
when Jean, spoiler at the end, they imply that Jean has evolved
Or
into
still
this
alive,
force, and then the fire like evaporates into a phoenix. And we're like, if it's not a phoenix, how did the kids know? And why did it just turn into that? Like, if it's supposed to be symbolic, this was not the kind of movie that got me to that point to like interpret symbolism out of things.
It just kind of felt like they were throwing shit out.
But speaking of the Nightcrawler thing, there was a point like when the guy died in his arms. I can't say that it was like an Oscar-worthy performance, but I did see like the terror in his eyes, because Nightcrawler, once again, so Nightcrawler is, historically Catholic, like very religious, but you wouldn't know that if
he was praying.
What's that?
He was praying in the movie. I don't know if you slept through that.
Probably. I don't know. Well, so, but I mean, like how religious he, like,
yeah, that's
like
true.
you would know as a fan coming in, and that's fine. That should be, but like a casual person that didn't know anything about X-Men would come in and like he's upset, but like that part kind of came out of nowhere, which is still once again fine if this was made for fans.
Yeah.
But so he has that, but then when he loses his shit, like I thought that was a really cool scene.
He's just slitting some throats.
Like you see his tail like cut throats and stuff, and you're like
breaks the guy's neck.
Snapped his neck with his tail.
But then you just see like what his potential was.
Yes. But you saw that also in X-Men 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. That's one of my favorite X-Men scenes is from X-Men 2.
Alan Cumming.
Yeah.
Who I was trying to prepare for Dark Phoenix, and Nerdist. It was either Nerdist or another comic book channel had talked about like what ruined the X-Men. The very first thing that the host says is she's like having Bryan Singer, having a pedophile be in charge of a beloved franchise, and she said, "Oh, alleged." I have to say alleged because of legal reasons, but we all know, and something like that, and. She was like so much so that Alan Cumming has been very vocal about saying he never wants to work in that franchise or with him again.
Yeah,
and it was like, okay, that's a shame because that, like you said, that was one of the best parts. Like Alan Cumming's like such a good Nightcrawler.
Olivia Munn said the same thing. Like
Olivia Munn,
she got sexually assaulted.
Like,
I actually I rented Apocalypse before, and I literally sat for an hour going, how can I not rent this movie? Like, I honestly, because whenever you touch it, it'd be like, it actually showed his nasty mug, at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Like, Bryan Singer directed this movie. And I'm like, are they just going to gloss over this dude again and then just give him a pass for, a couple years and he's going to fade away for a little bit and come right back?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know anything about the guy personally, so once again, alleged stuff. But I do see what he did to the movies, and that's an infraction on my part. I don't know. It was so discouraging, because there were really cool scenes. Even the beginning when Jean's a little girl and you see the car wreck and the glass is reflecting off of her. I'm like,
well, he didn't direct this one. It was
Yeah.
Simon Kinberg, right?
Yeah. But I mean, just all the X-Men, all the X-Men have these key scenes and stuff. It just comes down to the writing, man. It just was not a good story. It kind of felt like the parent that is just trying to fix things by throwing more money at stuff. You know, they're like, oh, I'll buy you toys, I'll buy you this, but at the heart of it, you want a relationship. You know, you want a good story. Like you want to.
I don't feel like they have a good connection. I feel like they don't with any of these movies. I mean, nothing connects at all. Like,
well, that's
I mean, none of it.
Obvious.
No continuity whatsoever. Like, and they'll want you to like, they'll say some homages to like, you know, the scenes where they're talking about the chess stuff at the end, or like they say the same stuff from like an Apocalypse. They quote a bunch of movies from like earlier. You want them to all connect, but they can't connect. Age-wise, they can't connect. Like, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it's just, I can't.
Oh no!
I feel like they don't care. Like, they just never cared. They wanted to make an action movie. They had a franchise that they bought from Marvel when Marvel was going to go bankrupt, and lucky for them, when they made that X-Men 1 movie, which I think is generally not a very good movie at all. But we loved it, loved X-Men so much that we gave it a pass because we never had. And the last thing we had was like Batman and Robin. Like, we had Blade, but like that's a rated R and that wasn't for kids.
It didn't feel like a superhero movie in the sense of like.
I just remembered there was a F word in this movie.
Yeah.
Holy
That was weird.
moly.
PG-13.
Cyclops drops an F-bomb.
Once again.
That was great, though. Like, I mean, I'm not saying
That was
cursing
like
was great, but like
that gave me a little bit of I gave him a little bit of brownie points for that. Not the actor, but just like as Cyclops did in the movie. Like,
he stands up like when he's talking to like Wolverine and other stuff. Like in the comics, he curses and whatnot, and like I could like the way he said that and the way he was kind of like commanding. Like, I was like, oh, good job.
Seeing him battle
Ready
in
Player
the
One
train
guy?
too.
I don't
was
remember
like,
your name.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I'm glad I got to see a lot more of Cyclops' power this time around.
Yeah.
It was super cheesy to see him go down into the cockpit.
Oh
of
my
the
God.
X-Wing.
There's a lot of laugh. Like I laughed a lot.
I like groaned so hard. I was like,
are you effing serious?
For a
Like,
second, I thought he was going to shoot through the glass.
Yeah,
Like,
how are
gonna,
you gonna shoot this?
They were going to make some sort of excuse about how he can control or something. And then I was like, this is worse. Like,
torpedo him
periscope
down.
thing. They have a ship with guns. Like what is the
gotta use Cyclops.
Just gotta use them somehow, you know.
That was like kind of really strange.
Can I tell you the funniest one of the funny parts of this movie? I laughed when the president leans over and picks up the X phone.
Oh geez, we were both laughing, and I was like,
oh shit, he got a bat phone.
Big X on it.
So
It's
that
like
was,
Batman. It's like Batman from the 60s.
So that was another one of my problems with this movie was as much as I feel like it didn't serve either a fan or someone who didn't know anything about X-Men, I felt like there was a lot of exposition where they wouldn't let you just like get it. You know, it's like they would just keep telling you instead of like just letting you like
Actually absorb it.
You know, it's like I feel like if you were like you know, a typical, not even adult, like, you know, more than like a child, like going to see this movie, Professor X picks up the phone and it's the president, and you cut to a shot of the president on the phone. I get the idea, you know, like for him to have like the X phone, and then for like Jean Grey to like be like narrating all the points that I already got, you know, like the narration at the beginning and the end was so corny.
But they did it because Gene narrated in the second or third movie, in X2 or X3.
Sure.
And I mean, every movie, even Apocalypse movie, had an Xavier intro, like all these other X-Men movies.
I don't know. I
never liked those, by the way. But
yeah, but it was the delivery too, man. And I was like, man, as much as I like Sophie Turner, like those were the things I was like, I would have just, I felt like it would have been so much stronger if they just started with that like car scene. I would have got it. You know, like I would have got like, oh, this is a messed up situation. Like all the things I need to get from it. There were other points where it's like characters were explaining things that people would never say to yourself out loud, you know? Like when Jean was in the alley and she was trying to wash the blood off her shirt, I felt like that had such potential to be such a powerful scene, you know, because she killed like someone so close to her and stuff. And she's like, why did I do that? She was so close to me. She was the main character in this movie. Look directly at the camera. Like, you know, it was like one click away from me. Like, she was also played by Jennifer Lawrence. She's a very important character. Like, you know, like I was just waiting for like more. I was like,
the gravity of this scene.
Yeah, it's so heavy. Yeah. Feel the scene. Like, this is about to be interrupted, so absorb it. I'm like, oh, man. Because it was like, you know, it's raining, all this stuff, and she's like, you know, the out damn spot kind of moment. I was like, potentially be really powerful. And it kind of took away to like, you know, it's like when you have that friend around that's always like telling you the punchline, like explaining the punchline to you. It's like, it's less funny now.
I wouldn't mind if she was just like, why did I do that kind of deal, but like to explain it further, like that's when you start getting me. Yeah, because I know I've seen people do that where they're like crying or whatever. Why did
she doesn't have to be silent, but she doesn't have to give you exposition.
Yeah,
yeah. There's not. like any bit of even a close explanation for that could be possibly like that she hears voices in her head or whatever all the time, so she's talking to whatever she hears. I don't know. That's a very loose example or excuse for that though. Like,
Yeah.
Otherwise, like it doesn't make any fucking sense.
I feel like, okay, at the beginning of the movie, like the president, everybody loves the X-Men. They got signs outside like X-Men. The one guard's like, you used to be my son's favorite. And like,
remind me to come back to that.
To be honest, like, okay, Jean went out and like busted up a couple cop cars and killed an X-Men. Like the X-Men would have been like nothing to the government, and busting up the cop cars, wow, would have been, bad. I'm sure across the United States, there's other similar, bad people doing stupid stuff. And like all that little thing is causing the president and everybody else to like hang up the phone on the X-Men when they loved them all before.
Yeah.
Like that's what I don't like movies or TV shows that like force emotions like that. That's the whole like, Xavier's trying to say like talk through his emotions at oh, this is where I met her, and oh no, I was just trying to protect you, and I didn't believe Xavier's apology to Beast at the end.
Me neither.
Like, I hate when you jump back and forth from emotions that much. It doesn't make sense.
End scene where Magneto comes and plays chess with the like semi, or what would you call, like he took a sabbatical or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And meets up or is at a cafe, and Magneto comes, sits down, plays chess or whatever. I felt that was very forced too.
So that's what I don't get. What was Xavier at the end? Was he like redeemed? Was he retired? Like,
yeah, he said he was retired, right?
He said he was on vacation.
Xavier or Magneto said to Xavier, like, are you having fun on your sabbatical or something like that?
So,
or your whatever you want to call it.
It's like the Batman thing, where like in the third movie he kind of leaves or whatever, and like,
yeah, it just got away because you see Beast like sit down at Xavier's desk, so like you automatically know, like, okay, he's in charge now.
And it's now Jean's school.
Oh yeah, the name change.
Oh, God.
The leadership change.
So corny. Okay, so real quick about the things going too quickly. So the beginning when they come back down from saving the astronauts and stuff, I'm willing to believe like crowds cheering, because if we lived in a world of superheroes, it's cool. There were signs, okay, but then there was like a kid in like a paper mache like space shuttle with like the X-Men stuff on it and stuff. I'm like, how much time do these people have like to get up to, like
X-Men's going into space? Let me make this now.
Right now. You know?
Also, yeah, that news, everything, all of that happened
like,
in one day
immediately. Like, and I was like, man, it's just like pushing it one click too far. Like, so our friend Shawnee always said, like, the problem with most guys is when they lie, they say too much.
Yeah,
they try to put too much detail into things. So it's like, we use an innocent example. It's like, did you cheat on your diet? It's like no, or did you, like, I don't know, something like, did you eat this? Did you not eat this cereal? Whatever. No, I ate the cereal and it was good. It was really good cereal. It was cinnamon cereal. It was like the best. So many details.
The best example is like, where were you last night?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I stopped by my buddies, and then I dropped a beer on his rug, and like that's funny, wasn't it?
So that's so I was kind of like this movie. I was like, okay, they got fans making signs, fans made costumes specific to this event.
Like, and it all happened within hours.
And then like 10 hours later, they're like, I hate them all. Unplug the phone. Unplug the X phone.
It was just like one of those things where Xavier says it out loud, like, oh, they'll love you one minute and hate you the next. And then that happens.
That was the second thing that I wanted to bring up, was like, as far as like speaking through the exposition, it was also like the, what's the word? Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Professor X was there for it. He's like, we're one day away. I don't know how many times he said that. We're one day away from them hating us again. We're just one bad day away. I'm like, so they're going to hate you again, right? Like, he just kept like hammering it in, and then the thing happened, you know?
It's almost as like this whole movie happened in Xavier's mind, and what we saw was just like a something he imagined one night or one time. He's actually in like a mental hospital.
That should be the end scene of this.
He wakes up as James McAvoy in Split. Because I would buy that.
There was an interesting little tidbits of mannerisms that Xavier didn't have in prior movies that he had this time around.
Like what?
It actually reminded me of the recent film, not Salt
Glass,
yes, where he's the feminine one.
Oh,
One
he's a woman. He's like a. Did you see Glass?
Yes.
he has like 7 different.
Yeah. What was
whatever.
it, Mrs. something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
But there's like ways he had like held his arm and like when he like reached to get drinks and things. These aren't like natural Xavier things that I remember in the past. Like just his mannerisms and the way he moved his body and like stuff like that was like, this is different.
That brings me to like another sin, and I pointed this out during the credits when the credits were rolling. I'm like, this kind of proves. I've never made a movie. We're not working in film, but like in music, it's like they always say it comes down to the song. Something can be a fad, but if it's a good song, it'll survive anything, right? Being torn apart in karaoke, made an EDM song, made a country song. So with a film, I feel like if there's a good story or maybe a script, I don't know like what the right vocabulary is, then it can do so much. And directing. The Xmen franchise has had some like actors that are arguably better than the ones in the MCU, but has just been directed horribly and have like not good stories. Like this story at the heart of it was not a good story. It just had a lot of money thrown at it. It had a lot of cool scenes. Like there were so many scenes that were gorgeous.
Man, I loved seeing Storm go buck wow.
Storm went wild. The scene where they were at some rando's mansion and Vuk was like before she stole the powers, and you see like the molecules on like the banister and stuff like fluctuating,
disintegrating.
Well, they weren't even disintegrating. It's like they were fluctuating. Like
it was like the molecules couldn't stay stable.
Like
around
I was
her.
like, these are gorgeous scenes. There's a lot of money and effort put into this and stuff, but there's no story underneath it. Like
even the scene where she comes outside from her father's place and she's floating in the air and time slows down and Quicksilver tries to jump up to do something.
Yeah.
And like you see how fast she is in her mind too. Like she can even anticipate his moves. That was like, that's a cool scene. I like that scene a lot.
Did you ever see the Screen Rant? I think it was where, or maybe it was How It Should Have Ended. One of those where they're like, "Oh, we gotta kill his daughter and his wife." And like, why? It's like because he's got to be evil again. I felt like this in this movie too, where he's like, he comes in and he's like, "Oh, I'm reformed again," and then like he gets up and. Wait a minute, whose blood is that? I need a reason to be evil.
There were scenes in the trailer that weren't in the movie again.
Oh yeah,
like where
they reshot a lot.
Magneto, of stuff. They like where Magneto's helmet gets ripped apart.
I was wondering where that was
pushed into his body and all that. In the trailer, you see him like weld back his helmet and then like wear it again. But they cut all of that out. Like you never see him get his helmet back. I don't think.
Getting down to like nitpicky things. Speaking of Magneto, did they ever call him Magneto? It's always Eric, right?
It was always Eric. Yeah.
Well, so someone else pointed this out, so I don't want to take credit for this, but why is Storm the only one called by her code name?
I know.
Everyone's like, "Hey Hank, hey Scott, hey Gene, Storm, get over here." Like, okay,
yeah.
Oh,
why?
I know, right?
And then and for them to point out like, the kids are calling you the Phoenix. They never called her the Phoenix.
No,
we never saw that.
They never said that.
He just it was exposition that wasn't even true.
Or they're calling you the Phoenix.
Even when
no one calls you the Phoenix.
Even when they confront like the who was it the other X-Men, the kids confront the X-Men like, did she kill him? She really kill him? Like they didn't say like the Phoenix kill her?
Yeah, did Jean kill Raven?
Yeah,
they even called Mystique Raven. Like
it's so weird.
I understand them calling her Raven because Mystique, I feel like it's a name that describes her actual character, where she's like dark and mysterious.
Well,
and
that's her code name.
Slimy, can slither away from things. I feel like they don't want to call her that because that'd give people like, oh, Raven. Oh, Raven's a good one because it's just dark. It's still mysterious, but it sounds better.
Showing her power that one time, like forcefully showing her power, I feel like in that one scene, because that's the only time you get to see her change, like her actual, like the flipping of the scales and all that or whatever you see. Like,
then I don't know if I watched the last movie before this movie, and like most of the makeup's real light in this one.
Yeah,
like real like. They just like glued your face up a little bit with a couple plastic things in her head.
And she had mostly clothing on.
I kept like filtering out the bad wig.
Oh yeah.
Like I was like, we have that wig. You've seen it in our videos. Vince wears it. Like it's the same quality. Like for a movie of that budget, like Rebecca Romijn when she did. So as much as I didn't like the original X-Men movies, like some of the strong points, Rebecca Romijn Stamos, badass Mystique.
Yeah.
Like
she doesn't have to say anything. Like she barely has any. At all.
I just want to see her move.
Really good.
Like the thing about Mystique was that she was like a super acrobatic, super limber, like she could move and twist and shapeshift and all this other stuff. Like to see her get wrecked so easily in this movie was kind of weird to me as well. Like maybe it was she was so emotional. Well, I mean, you could. That's the thing. I guess like the overall point is this whole thing felt rushed, and then they kind of wanted to put a cap on it. So they pushed like Xavier out at the end, made Beast like and then they changed the name of the school. Like there's so many things that are just like, oh my God, why this is like, so stupid. Why'd you do all that?
You could even change it or do other things and not even tell people like, and that could just be like small things you see. And like, I don't know, I feel like they do explain things way too much.
Yeah, or like when he put the sign on for Jean Grey's School of Gifted, like they made it a moment, like instead of an Easter egg. They were just like focused. He spent a long time putting that sign up.
Yeah,
like it was like you see him flip it over. Like I felt
Beast,
like
I need nails.
Yeah, I felt like you were gonna like watch
put
him
this
like
sign up,
go to Home Depot, like get some stuff, come back. Like it took just a little too long as far as pacing.
And then the worst thing that bugged me the most was at the very freaking end. They throw this little Phoenix fire thing in the sky at the end. I'm like, oh, fuck you. Like, that's so dumb.
And it would have made sense if they referred to it as the Phoenix Force, and if that was the reason the kids called her the Phoenix, which they never called her.
It was like putting the cart before the horse.
It should have been cool, like, oh, Jean's still alive and I care. But it was like, why? Why'd you do that? Like, there's no reason to do that. Like,
it's an X-Men thing. I mean, it's just...
I don't want another movie.
It's a Fox thing.
I want you to end this series of actors and all of this to end right now. And
that's another thing. Like,
and then let's start something else.
Part of the marketing was that they were kind of setting this up as like Fox's X-Men's like Endgame. You know,
they're
out. So I think like if you didn't know much about X-Men and saw that promo, you would go to this expecting like
a finale,
the closure of all closures.
Yes.
Yeah. There was no closure.
No.
Like, you don't know what happens to any of the X-Men that's still alive, besides they're in the school now.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to continue. Like, if you didn't know better.
It does look like it's going to continue, but I mean, they obviously, they would have continued if Fox wasn't bought by Disney. And this happened toward the end of that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch the end of Apocalypse, at the end credit clip is Essex Corp, which is like a Sinister thing.
Yes.
So like no Sinister, none of that stuff. They're setting stuff up that they just don't ever deliver on.
And so I'm trying to like sandwich, like weave in like positive points and like all the 1,000 negative points. One of the positive points, cool to see Dazzler.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was neat.
That was nice. That was
it's 90s, even though I feel like that would more be 70s or maybe mid 80s.
It was a pleasant surprise, like because I saw like the things, I was like, oh, is there a little
fireworks,
a fire, like a I thought there was maybe a fight happening for a second, like a split second, and then you heard the music and you were like, oh, it's Dazzler, that's cool. And I was like looking, it's like, is that Taylor Swift? Like,
it's really funny if it were.
Remember that used to be like the
Dazzler,
the thing
was
like
Taylor
she looked like her too. I mean, like she looked like
there was
earlier forms of her.
There was Easter eggs before rumors that Taylor Swift was going to make small cameos as Dazzler. But that wasn't her. It was just something that they did. I feel like they were leaning into like, we couldn't afford her, but if we could have, like, I don't know.
I feel a little weird about like that school being like a school with like kids, like little kids in it, and they're like, hey, let's let the kids have like a booze party in the backyard.
That's true, because not that like the drinking part was a huge problem, but we didn't see that many kids of that age in any other scene.
Yeah.
Like, they made it look like it was like basically an elementary, junior high. Mm-hmm. And then we saw a bunch of college age kids like hanging out, and we're like, where were they the rest of the movie?
They're just going to get drunk in the backyard and do crazy mutant stuff.
They had a mutant they showed in that scene that could portal like Blink. Mm-hmm. And then there was another scene with the kids that they kind of came up close to a kid that had like, you could see his mutation, but like God knows what either of those were.
At least there was like a little hint of the, like
it was like, oh, more
value.
mutants.
Yeah, I like the Dazzler thing. That was nice.
Yeah,
that was a nice touch.
Like I said, I feel like they hit all the beats as far as a movie goes, but I don't think it necessarily was like an amazing movie.
Like I said, it'd be like,
or like a good movie. Even
while Transformers 1 kind of holds a little tiny slice of my heart, just because
I like the first one.
The second to Beyond, I feel like this is what one of those was. To where like someone walking into the theater, like, I just want to see stuff blow up, and like with my girl, and like then that's what they'd watch and be like, yeah, it's pretty good. And, like, that's what like all the fighting that I'd have with like my friends or my family would be like, oh, before Marvel, kind of bought or did Iron Man or whatever, I would always be like, oh, I just wish that they would do this. And people would get mad at me, and they're like, oh, well, it was a good movie. Why would you get mad at it? Like, well, no, it's not really a good movie, and you're only seeing it through this, through this lens that, oh, things are blowing up, the guy gets the girl, it's fun. Like, but there's a lot more that you could expand on because it's actually got some pretty rich stories.
But I was trying to figure out though, like, if it outside of like an X-Men fan, like, what were you supposed to get from this movie? Like if you were just coming casually, like not as like a just see things blow up. Like even Godzilla, we saw twice. Like it's not a thinking kind of movie. You're not.
No.
But like what we got out of it was Godzilla got his throne back as the king of the monsters.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see that. I was rooting for Godzilla. It was pretty clear I was rooting for Godzilla, even if I was scared of him. And they had a few complex things. Not complex. They had a few like little things to make things a little more complex than that. But like in Dark Phoenix, I don't know who I was rooting for. I wanted like the innocent characters to survive, but I wasn't rooting for. I was like, I don't want Storm to die. Like I don't want Cyclops maybe not to die. Stuff. But like I couldn't figure out who the hero was. Like.
Well, the problem too is whenever you like make a movie of an ensemble cast that has this like hard narrative to one character, you're automatically doing a disservice to everyone else. Like. Your focus. This movie's focused on Jean Grey, her story, like her story arc, everything else. There are other characters that have story arcs, but the strongest one is her, right? So like all the other mutants around her suffer. Like it's a very bad. It's a disjustice to all the other teammates. Like so they try to give moments because that's what you want, but it doesn't work.
I would think about a movie like Ocean's 11. Like I don't talk about the rest of them, but Ocean's 11, like the first, the remake of the old one, but like the one with George Clooney.
Yeah, the one that we know.
Oh, real quick, the one thing, the reason I brought that up was because the older X-Men movies, Quicksilver always had a cool scene. Like somebody, this person always had
almost
a cool
had a cool scene in this.
I
one.
know,
Yeah.
like nobody really had a cool scene except for Jean.
Well, he had a cool scene like at the beginning with the spaceship.
It wasn't
anywhere as
epicness
grandiose of the old one.
Yeah, it just didn't do it.
But the
I
other
feel like
ones
it didn't do justice.
Yeah, the other ones had this YouTube clip moment.
That's what I meant by like a disjustice to everyone else. But you're saying like Ocean's 11.
Oh, I was saying like with Ocean's 11, it's an ensemble cast.
Yeah,
and like while some people may not be A-listers, they still get their time to shine.
Everyone has like a very distinct purpose in the movie. Although that movie in particular.
It's an ensemble movie. Like they all have a purpose. They all have whether the things go right or wrong. It's all great. I mean. And all those actors are great actors in it too. And you got Don Cheadle, you got other people that might have been at the beginning of their careers, and other people towards the end.
Yeah, and it's hard to like make that translate. I guess in the Ocean's 11, like that worked so perfectly because even though it was an ensemble cast, everyone had their time and everyone had a purpose. Like in this movie, you can't really say that.
Well, so yes, and at the same time, it felt like they kept doing the. Storm, you do this. Cyclops, you do this. We have the perfect amount of powers for this one circumstance. It was like that was the mistake that the Fantastic Four movie, the first one, did. It was like, oh, we have the perfect thing. Like, there's no extraneous. Like I was like, oh, that's so weird. Because then I was like, can Storm do that in outer space? Like I can't remember. Like I'm a huge Storm fan. I'm like, can she like patch up ships and stuff? Like
yeah. Doesn't she control the weather? Does she control
like
the space.
Space, like, and then like. I don't know. And then Jean, like, it was a weird. We just didn't see enough of her power before the Phoenix thing to know like what the capabilities were. The excuse that she had to get in the ship to hold it together was a little weird, considering she had enough power to like will the Phoenix stuff into. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I was confused about that too because it looked like she like diverted it to her so the other people would get hurt. And then they're like, it went to you. I'm like, well, what was it?
Well, exactly. Like they touch it a little bit, like, oh, it's the force of this or that, and it went to you. But no, like it
looked like she was like,
exactly. Like, she's like, hey, give me more.
Yeah,
like at the very least to like save. Her family.
I'd read that like they wanted to put Lilandra in it, but they're like, no, that would just include so much more, which I kind of agree because then to be honest, this needs to be at least 3 movies. I mean, like this arc needs to be 3 movies. It needs to be, them doing something in the first one and fighting Jean getting the thing at the end. The second movie being good Jean, like, oh, let's throw that towards the end of that one, something bad happens. Third movie being crap, Jean's bad. What are we gonna do?
Yeah. I would have liked to see Lilandra, especially because so you know what this kind of reeked of for me was a screenwriter that meant well but wasn't familiar with Xmen and was given like, here's a history of the Xmen. So they're like, oh, their world was destroyed by the Phoenix Force. Like that must be a huge deal to them. It's like, but a fan of any level knows like, oh no, the Shi'ar are much more close to this than, and that sounds really comic book guy-y, but I feel like if you ask any even casual fan about like the Phoenix, or like who was the alien race involved in that, I'm gonna bet you they're not gonna be like, oh, the Dabari.
Remember.
They would be like, oh, the Dabari, definitely. I'm like, no, Shi'ar, like the chick with the metal head thing, like, you know, like
Yeah, that's what we saw. That's what they gave us.
The fact that they wanted like this really great actress and make her like kind of one of the 500 villain forces in this movie, and then just pick something that like, I don't know, was just not necessarily obscure, just like not as intertwined with the Phoenix saga stuff. You know, I don't know. It was weird. It was a weird choice.
Yeah.
I like when they, especially with an ensemble cast, like I like learning something. Like I like the character getting put into a position where he or she has to choose.
Yeah.
And we just learned this like from a YouTube video. It's not something we learned. It's just something that became more apparent. Was that when you give the character a chance to choose, you learn about that character's character development. Like if they say like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself, like then you learn about that character. You know what I mean? I don't feel like there's a lot of those moments like they had so much talent and so many awesome characters to not like use them to their abilities. Like I don't know, I just feel like it was again a disjustice to all of the
like to have Jessica Chastain be so one dimensional was such like a weird choice. Like you have an actress that could do so many things. You know, we've seen her in other movies do so many things, and then you just have her be like, she's just a robotic like killing machine. You know, like I'll bet like once again, if I had my mom in the theater, she would probably she's like, oh, is that the Terminator? Like, because there's a scene where you're like, is that T2? Like I don't know, like you know.
I feel like they could have given. I know that like eventually. Xavier got through the gene. I feel like they really could have strengthened her and Scott's relationship that had been Scott. And also given him a little bit more time to develop his character.
Another exposition spoken when it didn't need to be moment, when they're in Cerebro and they're trying to get through the gene while she's taking a nap, which
doesn't make any sense.
It pops up a whole lot of consent issues only because they brought it up before. Like Beast or Hank, I guess they're not calling him Beast. Hank, he's like, did you just read my mind without permission? So my mind was like, okay, so that line only serves a purpose of that's this world's norm.
Well, it's a rule I'd imagine in the school because he's a teacher.
But they never adhere to it at all. Not even that moment. Like Professor X is like, let's dive into her head while she's asleep.
Only he can, I guess. Yeah,
but he's
like
always
under his rules.
When I was reading, he was always against like doing that.
So he's in her head with two other people.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let's go in and take a look.
It's just like
it's a real crazy house in here. Am I right?
Exactly. And then he's just dispelling all this information that he's way too comfortable telling these two people.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, I withheld all this stuff, and like, I feel like maybe Jennifer Lawrence even heard that dialogue for the first time on set. She's like, what the fuck? Like what? Like, why is this okay for this character? Like,
I know.
You know, like, so he's just like rummaging around in there. He's like, oh yeah, I made her forget that her dad was alive.
Yeah, he just kind of confessed all that stuff
to them, and just so that we knew, you know. And then meanwhile, like, I guess I'll take a little bit of that back. At least it kind of drove the point home to Beast or Hank and Raven that he's a little off.
Yeah, that he's losing it.
But they had that conversation before that happened, I think. Like, she was like, you're off. And it wasn't until that dining room scene that I remember that they were brother and sister, kind of.
Yeah.
And so, like, she would know that. We wouldn't have put that together. They were, like, foster siblings, you know? Like,
they're not.
Once again, yeah, that's another, like...
Yeah, it's just
why
blasphemous.
I feel Fox is just like... I feel like WB and Fox have a little bit of this problem together. They were like, hey, what was popular?
Yeah.
Cool. What made us money last time? Let's do more of that. Okay, can we add that in this? And like where you have like producers or writers or whatever else, and be like, I'm sure it's probably producers in general because like I had been watching some interviews of people that have been dealing with like, people that are the producers or the executives or whatever else. And they're like, hey, how about you do this? Like, how about you put a spider in, a giant spider in this? And I'm like, spider? Like, I think it's a Kevin Smith thing when he was like dealing with this producer, like for the Superman movie in the 90s. And he's like, he needs to fight a giant spider at the end. I was like, okay. He's like, he can't fly either. No flying for Superman. All right. And he's like, you have to do it because that's your job. But like, I feel like Fox and WB, like, they're, hey, what do we do? Oh, what's popular right now? Or what was good in the last movie? Oh, let's just do that again.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Raven. Everybody liked her, right? Everybody liked Mystique. She was fun. Let's make her a good guy. How about that? She's a good guy. Eventually, she goes bad. But
right.
No, she's a good actress now. Let's just keep her good.
I just remembered something you said a little bit earlier that, of course, this is in the 90s. I did not get that vibe at all.
No. I feel like it was 80s maybe.
I think you're right about the 90s, though. But I didn't get that vibe. I didn't get any. I
said 92.
I know it said it, but like I didn't get that vibe. Like in Captain Marvel, love it or hate it. It is very clearly cemented in the 90s. For anybody that lived through any part of that, it's like that is the 90s,
Well, they went out of their way to show it was 90s, not only with the soundtrack, but with everything else.
But I think even like when you take like a still frame of the way people were dressed and stuff, like it wasn't dressed in like Hollywood, like the way like high school kids think the 90s were. Yeah. It's like how people actually dressed in the 90s,
Yeah.
Like a tomboy would have worn like a 9 Inch Nails shirt. Like that kind of thing, like a ball cap or something. Like it's a little bit.
Cars were period.
It's a little bit more time.
The only thing I could notice.
It's a little bit more timeless than people gave the 90s credit for. But in this one, like it felt like to me it was like right now.
Mm-hmm. I feel the Xmen would do well in an actual like 90s era to where like I feel like that's where at least people our age who grew up with them kind of like their favorite era is that era.
92
didn't feel like
97.
They didn't, like from 97 to like 2003, I think was a very meh era. Partially probably because Marvel was going bankrupt at the time. But they didn't get good again until probably mid 2000s. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that would do really, really well if it was like a 90s era X-Men film, but this just didn't feel like that. Like, I wish they would have continued with the outfits they had before, and like they just would have moved into the 90s. But, I don't know. It was all over the place. Not that it was, like I said, it was okay. It was all right.
I put this on Facebook. Like, listen, see it if you want. Just don't pay full price for it. Like, so we saw it in 3D AMC Prime because he had $4 tickets and we had free tickets.
Yay.
The actual ticket was like a little over $25. I would have been pissed. I would have been that guy. Like, I want my money back because like it visually had great moments, but not enough to compensate for what we saw story wise.
I will say the 3D was not bad.
Pretty good. I like the particles and stuff. Yeah, like.
I felt like there's actual like depth. There's an actual distance. It wasn't just like computer animated. Everything was separated from everything else.
That one scene that they're outside, it's raining. It's Professor X with an umbrella, and he's like standing in the rain. You saw all the levels of depth and everything. It was great.
And in space too, like space depth that felt really well.
Space looked cool.
And so much. There's so much like scattered like for me for the most part when I go see a movie, like I'm not looking for like completely grounded in reality. I just want like an idea of what the rules are there, and then I just go with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think at any point they gave us a clear sense of what that was in this world.
I hate when people do anything in space because nobody freaking does it like to the rules. Like we saw Nightcrawler with a duct taped helmet on go in deep, like outside space
with
and not
Jean,
like freeze
without
who had nothing
Jean didn't
on.
have anything. Yeah,
and
like,
before
she
she held everything together.
Yeah, like. There's no freaking anything,
and
like,
also
no rules at all.
Nightcrawler went in there earlier
with nothing on,
and Quicksilver. Yeah. Like there was no point except for maybe a laugh to show the duct tape.
And like I guess they kind of covered that with like Storm, cover up the holes or whatever, and then they zapped in and that zapped out.
That's not how that works, though.
But
like,
that doesn't
scientifically that would
freaking happen. Yeah.
But even outside of that, like I couldn't figure out what power level were the Dabari supposed to be at. Because for a second, they were like invincible. We were talking about this in the car. He's like, oh, this kind of gun was the only one that could take him down. I was like, but did it? Because I feel like half of them regenerated and came back.
It's like I can hit them with a train and they'll die. But if I shoot them a million times with a billion guns, they're not going to die. Like, I don't I don't understand power level. I mean, I would imagine like if you had like a billion guns and just aimed at one gun, hit them all at the same time, it would probably be the same thing as hitting someone with a freaking train.
Yeah.
Like I just don't understand that.
And then the Jessica Chastain's Vuk, like wanting to absorb the Phoenix Force, and then at the end we find out like, oh, she couldn't handle it. She was going to die from it. Then why didn't Jean just give it all to her? Then why did she fight? You know, like.
Yeah,
I
that
guess
was a kind of a cheesy.
I guess you could say like well, she didn't know, but I'm like
Cyclops.
What changed between now and then that she knew?
I liked that the Force was like she was trying to shove the Force into the chick or whatever, and then it started getting so big outside of those two that Cyclops' hand started to disintegrate, and he's like, Jean. Like so, like wussy, like Jean,
Yeah,
and she's like, oh, and like pulls everything back in, like.
I mean, see, I would love. So we're talking to our friend Andy who does like voiceover work. I was like, I want you to do commentary and voices of like other things and scenes, and I would have been like, Jean's like, walk away, like you don't have to stand right next to.
I know,
this.
like back. Oh, I'm trying to kill this chick.
Because they also that was another rule that wasn't clear. The other people around her weren't disintegrating. They made it look like it's because he was like that 10 feet closer.
Yeah, like too close
so
to
back
the
up,
Force.
or like get Nightcrawler to get all of them the heck out of there. You know. But then, so once you were saying things happen too quick, so they love them, then they hate him. They made a point to say they hammered home. They're like, he's no longer taking your calls. It's like a breakup with like a 14-year-old girlfriend. You know, like it's.
That's 100% how I feel though. It's like CW level emotional drama. It's just
and then at the end, like this literal nuclear train wreck happens, and then they cut to like, we're back in business. I'm like, wait. What?
Everyone loves us again.
For what reason? They don't like. No one saw any of this. You know, like they. So earlier when she flipped over 3 police cars, they were like, "Oh, you're
Sent
banned."
in the military.
But they trashed an entire top secret train line, securing like and killed everyone. None of those soldiers survived. Like, or if they did, we didn't see them survive. Because no, they couldn't have because it eviscerated when it like spiraled through the air and stuff. But now they're fine. Like. What's going on? You know, like
Feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I don't understand the rules to what we just watched, and like I don't want to take it that deep because
there was no like what do you call them? Stakes or not stakes? There were no like nothing happened afterward. But what do you call that?
Yeah, there weren't any stakes though. Like I was like, I mean, at one point I was like, why doesn't Jean just fly into space and die? Like I mean, I didn't give me anything to care about her. You know.
Well, at some point you realize that they're going to take over the world or whatever, and so you're like, okay, well, at least I want that to not happen.
Yeah.
So,
but that's why I was like, why doesn't Jean just go in outer space and like just end it all or fly into the sun or something? You know, like because it would have been different if they would have like really established a relationship between all the X-Men and stuff. Like, well, no, I don't want her to because I care about her. You know, it's like, but at the end I was like, I mean, I like Sophie Turner, but if Armageddon's at stake. Maybe just fly her ass into the sun and we'll just be done with this, you know? Like
yeah, and take those, whatever they're called, with you.
Yeah, just grab them up, go with, you know?
I was not a fan of Beast's whole back and forth. That I did not feel like it was at all. Like, I didn't feel like it was real. You know, him like, oh, I gotta kill her now. Like, nah, she killed my girl.
It's just a weird display, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like that Beast at all. Like, I've never liked Nicholas Hoult as the Beast. I just oof.
And it's tough shoes to follow, Kelsey Grammer, because I think the thing that I actually did like about the Fox's X universe was the casting. Half the time was so spot on.
Kelsey was the best Beast ever.
I would assume, that his was probably one of the better castings.
It was
we just didn't get to see very much, and that was a
the
horrible
92
movie.
series.
Yeah,
like he was highly intelligent. He could hang from ceilings, like
and like. The Nicholas Holt's character, I didn't feel like he was Beast at all. Like I just felt like he was blue dude with like furry hands.
there's a lot of blue going on in this film.
Yeah.
It's true, there was a lot of blue in this film.
but you're right. He didn't ever do anything Beast-like.
Yeah, I mean he picked up a car, and I'm like, well, I don't even know if like Beast.
He flew a plane.
I guess he could pick up a car. Yeah, like
but he didn't.
Beast just looks small.
Kelsey Grammer's Beast showed so much more like action. Even. Like.
And he looked bigger, to be honest.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he looked like, oh hey, I've got some
You're
girth
Gino,
on
yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and like. But this guy's like, I'm a little dude, but I'm the Beast. You know, I don't get it. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I did not
Ever.
get the sense that this was the fully grown X-Men. It still seemed like it was his first class. Oh God, that another thing when they were like, and we are the first class. Like I was like, oh,
We're the only ones left. Yeah, the first class.
And so
like,
I was
'cause
still
everyone
so
died.
disappointed from that First Class movie because of the comic that was out at the time.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I'm so excited. This is going to
Yeah.
be like the first us to comic. And they even talk about it. Like Lauren Schuler Donner, which is like a producer, has been on like all of this. We're kind of going after this comic that is currently out or whatever. And it wasn't. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't anything like any of the First Class ever.
I just
all
hate
you
that
had was Beast.
Every time they would introduce a new person or a new mutant, they would kill them off. Like, what kind of universe do you build, or like how are you supposed to have other movies if every time you introduce somebody you kill them off? Like,
And this is a genuine question. I'd forgotten like the history of this new like era of X-Men. Where is Wolverine in all this?
yeah, I don't know.
He's
92.
off somewhere
Is he
else.
still the Weapon X like program supposed to be?
I think he's because he was off from Weapon X in the last movie. He was
Okay.
released, which was
Was
weird.
that
It
the
changes
cameo
from the first movie?
Was
Yeah,
that
it
the cameo? Okay.
In Apocalypse, they let him go in the Weapon X facility, which I felt was like very overly pushed.
Yeah.
He's somewhere in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. And then so
No, just play.
So it is weird.
He's
so
either
there-
in Canada with Alpha Flight, or he's just a grifter.
So that's a weird timeline to have with
Cage
the
fighter.
X-Men, that they're supposed to be fully formed, and Wolverine's like not even close to like having come in contact really with them
Yeah.
in a real sort of way. Like, well, no, it has changed to the Jean Grey School of Gifted Youngsters, and Wolverine still has not come in contact with this school.
Yeah.
That's a weird timeline.
They just like threw it out the window, man. Like, really,
whole thing.
they just created whatever they were like. I'm gonna shit on this stick, and whatever it looks like is how we're gonna write this movie.
And there's no continuity. None of it.
They didn't take any
None
of this.
it.
Like, they took the source material, names, and powers of said mutants, but that was about it.
Well, there's Archangel in the last movie, which he's supposed to be different from the movie. Like he was in with in X-Men 3,
Oh, yeah.
Last Stand. I mean, we've also had other parts where in Wolverine Origins where we had Emma Frost, who's different from the other Emma Frost, different timelines
God.
and different. I mean, it's just all. I think at some point we had Psylocke. I think in the third movie, but she's obviously not. It was just a cameo. There's just too much crap. Too much crap.
I just think that they would learn something. I guess that this was a weird time for this movie to come out because it was like two different places, and then they had to reshoot. And then
Did you notice
at some
that
point got
Disney didn't have their stamp on it anywhere?
No.
I would not want
Like-
on it.
Well, I just it's
If I was Disney.
well because the assumption was
Just
when they acquired
Marvel.
Fox,
It even
like,
said like in association with Marvel
Yeah,
films.
They've
or
been doing that
whatever.
for a little bit with the association.
yeah,
thing.
because of licensing and stuff. But like I don't know, it just
Do you think they would have learned something from like Logan and Deadpool? Like, I don't know. They
respect the source material.
no, it's just like crowd service for one. That's what both of those did for people, but also like that's what we wanted to see. We wanted to that was the Deadpool we wanted to see. Like that was a movie like Logan or whatever was the movie we wanted to see. We didn't know we wanted to see it, but a Western old man Logan was awesome to me.
and a lot of people pointed out like Logan was we weren't even aware the X universe was trying to have like a grand closure until Endgame.
Yeah.
But if they did have that as a plan, like Logan should have been like the closing. Like that was such a beautiful like this chapter's over. Like thank you for writing with us. Like
Yeah.
this is something I don't know.
This was like the residual, like the shit that's in the wine glass at the end of, or like the grinds at the bottom of the coffee grind, our coffee cup.
So like Nick from Sneaky Zebra, I read this review before on other live streams. He said like he was going to give his review as much effort as the cast and makers of this film. Meh, and I was like, I feel like that. I hesitate to say that though because I know a lot of people work on stuff and you put a lot like. So there's a lot of work obviously that went into it, but it comes down to like that story. Like the story wasn't there, and like you can't just keep throwing money at it. If you do, it just has to be a big Michael Bay blow up film. Like,
Another thing that got me too is like the cloudy particle effect that you got with Nightcrawler was pretty much the same particle engine as what you saw around Jean. Like they didn't even like try to make them like different things. Like they were just different colors.
I didn't notice that, but it was
One's
cool.
like more fiery, I guess.
Yeah, they just like there wasn't like an added element that to make it feel like this belongs to her and this belongs to him.
I get that.
Like they the way that the fluid movement of the particles and the smoke and the coloration and everything moved the same way for both characters. And I was just like, man, I don't know if I. But like again, at this point of the podcast, I'm like super nitpicking the movie. You know what I mean? Because like overall, I'm like, that was all right. That was it didn't suck to me. Like I didn't walk out there being like, oh my god, that was fucking horrible. Like. I just kind of was like, that's all right.
They would have just continued, like with the next movie.
I really, really hope they don't. I hope they stop here.
Oh, no, they definitely
would.
They would have.
Like if it was Fox and they didn't get bought, they would have continued because if you don't make a movie, the licensing agreement is like if you don't make a movie in a certain time, you lose it. That's why we had Daredevil.
I feel like this, unless the international market really, really comes through, I feel like this is not going to hit numbers because we're in LA and you can use like theaters even for like Aquaman. Like like I couldn't say it's a good movie, but it was entertaining,
Yeah.
So theaters were packed. It's technically opening night. Thursday I know is like the real opening night, but even Friday, Saturday, if you try to like see a new movie of any sort of stature in LA, we were at the Burbank Theater. Yeah. It's packed. This theater's not packed. No. And we were in like one of the like the bigger like higher traffic theaters. Like you could have gotten a seat in over half that theater,
which is really weird because like. I went to go purchase mine online last night. My daughter came with us, and I was like, I'll grab another ticket. And a lot of the seats were taken on the app. So I don't know if maybe they just only allowed me to have certain seats or something, or if people just didn't want to show up after they bought
or maybe something a little more nefarious with numbers.
Maybe that could be true. Like I never thought about that.
Tickets bought.
I heard people complain about that stuff with like other things like Captain Marvel or whatever, but I went to Marvel twice and it was packed both times. So it was like
also like just you get a sense of like the air of people's excitement and stuff. We saw Captain Marvel in Florida, and people walked out of the theater. They were jazzed. They were like, "Let's find another theater like to see this movie and stuff." Like when the few people that were in our screening, like when it was over, like, oh. Like, okay, yeah, sure.
No one was excited.
No one was excited, and then one guy was like, "I want my money back," and I we feel it too. I want to get paid to see this movie.
$4 back.
I just at the end of the movie, I felt like there was a thing missing. Something's missing.
A lot of stuff missing.
And that's what it ended up being. Like,
definitely didn't deliver on it. It's like this is the end.
No,
it's not.
It rushed through the whole deal. It let the audience like. Try to think too much or like because they didn't explain so many things. They were just the audience will get it like kind of deal. Like I don't think that happened.
And that's my point about the from the beginning of the podcast where like I can't say it's a good movie or like he was even all right because you go see it and there's too many scattered points that you don't understand.
Yeah, like I understood like that was the bad guy. Those guys were the bad guys.
So who was the bad guy? That's why
the guys that were trying to get Jean at the end. They were the bad guys.
But in their eyes, they were just trying to like save themselves. But we didn't know that,
Well, I mean, they didn't say they wanted to try this. They said they wanted to take over.
Like,
like this is going to be our planet.
They said
now. Like
she guys. Right before all that train shit happened, they like congregated and said that they're going to take that planet. Mm-hmm. And then they went to go try to capture Jean. Yeah. So automatically, but then even not knowing anything, that makes them the bad guy.
But
like,
then what was Xavier's selfishness?
That was just the side thing. Like the whole point of that was like, well, you already know, like to get him to realize that he did something wrong because he wouldn't admit that he was wrong.
But why was that necessary? Like,
who knows why that was necessary?
He needed
who knows why?
But there was no outcome to it. He didn't learn anything. He didn't have an arc.
They tried at the end.
He was trying to get Beast back on the same side
when they were like locked up, and he's like trying to apologize to Beast. Like that was supposed to be like the coping, or
but we never saw him turn into an egotistical maniac.
Oh, what?
We never saw him become an egotistical maniac. We just saw a couple instances where he made a really bad call, and people saying that he did.
They painted him that way by doing like the phone thing
that way,
and and then like seeing him like get the rewards and seeing how he acts like just by his actions. Like that's all they got.
When he told like when Jean was going nuts the first time at her dad's house. And Beast or Hank was like oh, and he's getting ready to take a shot, which is a tranquilizer anyway. They said was like it wasn't going to kill you.
Yeah,
it's what it sounded like. Yeah. And he freezes him. He's like, I want Raven to try. I'm like, why? You just saw her destroy 3 houses.
Just track her.
just drank her and like let's work it out back at the house, and stuff. And then when Raven dies and stuff, I'm like, no, that's clearly your fault.
Yeah.
Like no one else had a
that
choice in that
scene.
situation except for you. And then he goes home. He's like, it wasn't my fault, man. It's like, literally, that was your fault. Like you're the one person that made this decision in this thing, and stuff. So you can't shove this on anybody else. Like Hank was trying to shoot her. Like I don't even know why having Raven try to talk her down was even an option.
Because they got to kill her. That's why. That's honestly.
No, but I mean,
that is
like if you're in
why,
that situation, like what are you like? What is there? You're like, like, yeah,
It's
maybe
crap writing is what it is.
let's try to have her be reasoned with by the person who used to be a villain. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was a movie.
Like if you
Like
And it's over.
it's over. Like the best part is I'm glad it's over.
Yes.
And
Leave
like I
it
said,
over too.
a
Please.
handful of like really great YouTube clips, like CG design. Like I actually don't really have any complaints about the visual effects.
No, it was good.
Like anytime we saw something, I didn't think anything felt hackney. Like Jean's flying was really cool. Had kind of that Superman effect.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
Yeah.
I didn't like, and I've never liked the Beast effect, and I didn't really like the makeup on Mystique, but
That's true.
that's practical.
Yeah.
Practically, like it's just
Yeah.
The action sequences could have been better because of what we've seen elsewhere, but I can't say like, oh, that was disappointing. I mean, they were action. It was
a lot better than what we've had in the past.
Yeah, it was cool. The train scene was a cool little bit. I don't know why it was happening really, because they didn't tell us where they were going. You were assuming some sort of incarceration.
Well, no, they said they're on their way to the mutant detainment center.
Yeah.
But that's
before
still-
they entered that tunnel.
See, this is how like memorable all that like like
You also did wake up.
yeah, but before that, I woke up before that. But like that was another part. It was so exciting. Just dozed off for like 10 minutes. But no, even when the titles were like 1992, the rest of it was so not that it just like, I'm like, oh, somebody has to remind me.
Yeah.
Like in the train thing, I was like, if someone says it offhand, like it was a cool scene to set up, but like it didn't have me like, like in the Matrix, like whenever they had like chase scenes and stuff, you know throughout the entire time like where they're getting at, emotionally or physically and stuff. This one was like, well, it's a cool setup for like this big chase scene. I don't know why it's taking this long to get there,
I did like how they portrayed the trailer like it was Jean who was going to crush up the train with them all locked up inside of it. And then once we went to go see the movie, it actually wasn't Jean. It was the mutant other race that was breaking into the train. Like that was kind of a cool little like twist for me. Like I was like, oh, it's not, this was that scene from the trailer, and I was like, oh, is it not Jean? No, it's these other peeps. I was like, okay, well,
And I thought it was kind of weird where they're like, oh, we got this dark phoenix force happening, and then she's killing people or whatever. Like, Jean, just be good. I'm just gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like towards the end, I'm like, I'll just let go of all my emotions and we'll be great. Like, I don't believe it. Not for 1 second do I believe that.
It did. I will admit, it did make for a cool visual moment when she like loosed herself of all the chains and they just all evaporate and stuff. I liked, conceptually and visually that moment where she's like, "I'm going to save my family." Sure, but like,
it was cool
no
seeing
reason why it happened like that.
Yeah.
Magneto's face as he's in that force field bubble. He's like looking around like he looks stupid.
It kind of makes me wonder what they told those actors was happening during the green screen.
I know, right?
I was like, you ever seen the Tom Holland thing where someone had been like, you ever look at, they had like made a meme of Tom Holland in like Infinity War where he's looking around and I was like, and you ever think it's funny that Tom Holland looks like he doesn't know what's happening? And then like Tom Holland like actually comments on the bottom, he's like, because I didn't know what was happening.
It's kind of like a lot of those characters, like what Gwyneth Paltrow said she didn't know she was in Far From Home.
Yeah, she didn't remember it.
And Brie Larson said she didn't know she was at the end of Endgame or Captain Marvel. They were shooting green screen things, and she didn't even know it was a Marvel movie.
Wow.
She just knows it was one of the movies she was contracted to do, and it was on a green screen, and they gave her an eye line and lines to say.
Where's Fury? She didn't even know what Fury was or
Maybe
who it was.
But like, let's say you even know a little bit. I'm going to assume that she's not like a comic book expert. That could mean a number of things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No, I'm sure she would have known it was Fury or whatever, but she didn't know where she was or who she was talking to.
Yeah.
I remember she was saying like, okay, so who am I talking to? Like, 5 other people in the room. Like, okay, so how tall are they?
Yeah.
We'll put up eye lines for you. So like obviously they're getting around it like really well. She's like, dang it, they're not telling me anything.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, go see the movie. It's cool if you want to. If you were thinking about it, and it's not going to cost you like $25 or something, like it'd only be as comfortable with as much money as you would just like to like kind of lose in anything else that you would lose. And if you like big action sequences, there's a handful, but not as many as like Godzilla or something. So if you had a choice between Godzilla and this, go see Godzilla.
Yeah. I haven't seen Godzilla yet, but I've heard it's really good.
It's a lot better than this one, and it
knows what it is.
It knows what it is, but it's also like even if you think it's a dumb movie because it is just a bunch of smashing and monsters, it's a better one. And it's hard. I think that's the thing is like I don't make films. I don't know what it takes to be a filmmaker, but as an audience member, the filmmakers who did Godzilla made a good dumb movie.
That movie had more heart than Dark Phoenix will.
That's really weird. Yeah. Good point. Like that's the thing. I cared about Godzilla. And he didn't have any lines. He just roared the whole time. But like,
Didn't have any lines.
but like, I didn't care about Sophie Turner's character or like Beast or anything. Like, I didn't care about anybody. Like, you could have thrown anybody in there and just blown them up and be like, sure, whatever.
And it could have been a number of things. It could have been like a camera positioning or like the acting or the directing. That like inhibited it from having that type of emotional effect on us.
I think the story was the biggest thing because the only time
the setup everything.
The only time we got a sense that it was because of family, like the sense of families, when they told us.
Yeah.
We didn't see them be a family.
I feel like this is also another, tale of Hollywood giving us things we don't want. Mm-hmm. Like this movie, we didn't really want it. I mean, like we've already had that kind of aspect or whatever. If we would have continued with like Sinister, I think that would have been a better way to actually explore Jean and Scott's relationship because obviously he screws with them.
Like breed and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
We were done with After Apocalypse because we didn't even really want that one. I mean, I didn't want it because I knew they were going to F it up.
I didn't. I just watched it earlier today and I was like, "This is awful."
There's
that's
no
way
that's
worse than this one.
You can do Apocalypse in one movie.
I would say that too.
There's no way you could do Apocalypse in one movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's just a span of so much crap that has to be set up.
Same with all of these. Like the Phoenix stuff shouldn't be a singular.
No.
Yeah,
like
we should have more than
had a movie where like the thing about these like the animated series is some of the episodes you only had like one story arc. Like it was an episode just about Jean now, and the next episode was just about like Wolverine or whatever. The other ones were in there, but they were only like jumping in for cameos, and then like something would like push the plot along, something like that. But like you can't do that with movies, right?
Well, in the comics
or you can,
too,
I guess, but it's harder.
In the comics, like Jean was Phoenix for a bit. Before this happened, so it was just kind of like.
And I know someone is going to say this, so I want to address it now. Like, one of my problems with the movie is that there's too much like exposition spoken, and I know the cartoon series does a lot of that, but it's also like the medium. Like obviously when people say like we just want the animated series made into movies, we don't mean like that.
No,
like I don't want like it's a person like a human person like getting on camera saying the things verbatim like what Professor X says or something. But like in this visual form, like we had so much great CG and stuff, and like there was other way. Like a lot of the stuff was the things that were there and didn't need to like be rehashed with like some exposition or in some really inappropriate sequence, like the Cerebro scene, where like, so when we're going to talk about this, let's not bring on two people who should not be in this woman's head.
Oh goodness, Scott! Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you and her.
Right?
Hey, seriously, that's like a whole thing. Like we're going through our memory.
I think even Raven was like, "Is it supposed to look like this?" Like,
nah, her brain's effed up.
That's basically what he said.
He was like, something about a psychic's head looks different or whatever.
But like. Oh, and the whole fact that they're like going through her head while she's like unconscious, it was like, wow, that has so many weird implications.
And then they're trying to push him out, and he's fighting it.
And a professor who's supposed to be like the greatest like empath, telepathic on Earth, is telling an angry person, specifically a young woman, to just calm down.
Yeah,
Like
just calm down.
Do you want to die?
He's like,
he's like force on you. Just
calm down. Like,
Or said, settle down to Angie once, and she's whoosh. The Phoenix Force killed me right then and there.
Good.
Oh, just settle down there.
but you tell that to anybody, let alone like an unstable, like possessed by Space Force thing, like, sure. Let's
He's
not
be like
let's
a
not know.
narrator, like, you need to settle down. She did
Did
not.
not settle down.
She did not settle down.
But even I don't know. I don't know. There's a bunch of like little nitpicky things, but there's enough big things that just made it like I don't know. This is going to be one of those like plays on TBS on Sunday afternoons, and in 20 years, if there's a Mystery Science Theater equivalent, they're gonna hack this apart because there's so many things. You're like, whoa,
I don't know if it was that bad. I mean, there's been some bad stuff, but like it's okay.
I think in time it will be that bad. Like I think we're giving a lot of leeway now because we're caught up like in the at least it looked good, thing. But
Well, if they actually put a good, solid ass movie out, then it'll make all the rest of them look real bad.
because I will say someone like Gary from Sneaky Zebra said this made Last Stand look like a masterpiece. I kind of agree with that in the sense
I
that
don't know
like
about that.
I not the story was still crap, but I liked Femke Jenke or whatever,
Jensen?
like Jensen's like portrayal of the Phoenix a lot better in the moments that she got to be the Phoenix, like
Oh, dude, that movie is. You need to rewatch.
No,
it.
no,
Do you
the
think
mo-
that
no,
movie is
the-
better than this
no,
one?
the movie's
I don't-
crap, but
Yeah.
that Phoenix
That's my favorite Phoenix.
that Phoenix I
Yeah.
bought so much more than this Phoenix.
She looks creepier too, man. Like when they have those scenes where like she's like with the eyes and
Yeah.
whatnot, and like she looks a lot creepier.
I bought that she was an unstoppable force more
Yeah.
than Sophie Turner. Like Sophie Turner was like junior.
Seeing
Phoenix,
her F up Xavier at the end there, that was an epic scene.
The Bakery they recycled that too. Like
He died there. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was halfway through.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, either way, that was a
They
great.
they again went to her parents' house.
Yeah.
sure.
That's what I said. Like this is just such a rehash. We didn't ask for this at all.
I guess if anything, because I guess we should be kind
Yeah,
of
we
trying
should
to wrap
it
up.
It's too much.
If anything, at least it carried on a tradition of X-Men series ending horribly. Because as much as I love the animated series, those last few episodes were kind of rough, and that is like the worst ending to such an epic series.
Speaking of, I think they may be trying to pitch that to Disney, like the old people that worked on.
I've read that.
Oh.
That'd be nice. I mean, I don't know. I've always wanted to like ask that guy some questions.
They want to
like
continue it too.
like a continuation.
They say they want to like leave off where they left off.
Nostalgia Critic did an interview with Eric Lewald and his wife, I think Julia, and they talked about rumors of it coming back, and those two said they were very interested. I will say I trust those two more.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to see it continue. I don't know.
A lot of the early animators are gone.
Yeah.
And some of the voice actors have died.
But like I don't know. It's kind of like this Infinity Saga. Like like in whoever how many decades they're going to try to redo this whole thing because it's cashing in again. I don't think I want to see that. But like I do want to see like them just pull stories and learn lessons from the animated series and do it. Like I mentioned in other podcasts. I don't necessarily want to see a Days of Future Past movie, but I would love to see that series happen over the course of a bunch of movies.
I mean, they didn't even do that. They didn't even do that well in the '92 series. I mean, it was not like the.
I liked it. I mean,
wonder why they
but you
don't
liked
do-
it. But like, people complain about these movies being not like, like the comics or whatever. And that series at that point wasn't. They're sending Bishop back as opposed to sending back Kitty Pryde. I mean, it's just kind of, yeah.
or like the Phoenix stuff. Like I don't know. Even if it wasn't built up, I would have loved to have seen it just like play over the course of a bunch of other movies with other stories happening. Just so we kind of like were able to put it together. It's kind of like those action figures where you buy each action figure and has like Apocalypse's leg and then his arm, and like we put it together at the end. Like do that with movies, if anything. Like
They still have this New Mutants movie is apparently still coming out, and that got pushed back another whole year.
last I heard, they haven't even started reshoots yet.
That's
They were
the
going to,
horror,
yeah.
which is
Yeah.
rough because Maisie Williams is so much older
Yeah.
now than before, and she's in that age where like there's a huge difference. We were talking about kids like growing up and stuff. Like it's going to be one of those where like she comes on screen like I'm still a little girl. Like
I feel like it's just going to be downplayed. I would not be surprised at all if they just kind of like quietly put it on Hulu instead. You know, like
Sure, yeah.
just because I don't know.
And it sucks because I read some more stuff about the director's original vision.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if it would have been perfect or not. I don't know. But it sounded like he wanted something. Fox was scared, so they made him make something else. And then it didn't test well. And then the horror thing tested well. So they were like, oh, let's patch together some other thing. But it wasn't still what he wanted originally. So it was like, you know, it's like when someone tells you to like make this or write this down. Like, oh, no, don't write that down. Oh, just write this on top of it. It's like, okay. You know?
I mean, I think the horror movie thing. I mean, I don't really see that being a good idea in general because I mean, superheroes are superheroes. You know, you want kids, at least teenagers, to be able to watch it, and horror is not really conducive for that.
I'll give it a chance, like a good one, like because I don't know, like, but
I mean, the Brood's pretty scary. Like, I mean, if you brought the Brood into anything, I mean, it's kind of like Aliens. So.
yeah, because they kind of look like xenomorphs, a little bit more pointy.
They're like xenomorphs, like 100%.
But I don't know, like
That was in Hawk's timeline.
Yeah,
The Brood.
it was an X-Men thing. I'm sure it was more, but just like everything else, it touches everything.
Actually, yeah, that was X-Men.
It's like a buffet plate. You put
And
a little
then-
bit here, and it all kind of eventually gets in the middle.
That's what it was. It was Planet Hawk. And the Brood, there was just like the species of the Brood where there was one of them there on that planet that Hawk took over.
I don't know, it's a Brood. I thought it was a different thing.
Big alien looking thing. I think its name was Brood, actually.
end of everything though. I think this movie will just be forgotten.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody will remember it. Like at the end of the day, like I think it's just gonna fade away into like obscurity. It just didn't have anything to stand out. There wasn't anything that's so terrible to even remember about it.
I feel like X-Men in general is going to do that, just because.
With the exception of maybe like this started it all, but like I don't know if anybody's gonna remember.
The first one was
storylines.
just not very good. I mean,
No.
the second one's the best one for me, but also, I mean, I feel like that second movie came out and everyone had loved that first one, or at least seen that first one. They were excited for the second one, and you went to the theaters then, like it was packing theaters out.
Yeah.
But like you go to theaters, even in the last three, even Days of Futures Past, like that was probably the bigger one of the last I don't know how many, and even that wasn't even that well attended.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you take a look at this, like when we were in the theaters,
It was
nobody there,
half
It's
empty,
just,
but
like,
you're right.
gone.
When we went to go buy tickets, it was completely full.
Yeah,
So that has me very curious as to what happened there.
yeah.
It's a pretty big theater as far as like LA goes in Burbank. Like it's not the biggest, but it has one of the only like Dolby cinemas in the country, like one of a handful. And so like it's enough that people go see movies there.
It's Burbank.
Yeah, like that's the kind of movie theater. It's not necessarily ArcLight in Hollywood, but it's one of those theaters that you wouldn't be surprised if like one of the stars of the movies just sat down to surprise people. Like it's a big enough like that, and if that wasn't like filled on like opening weekend, man, like not showing good. But once again, international numbers might surprise
Yeah,
us
you never know.
because at the same time, like Venom, I can't say was a great movie, but like I still bought it later because like it was a really good whatever it was, and I can't say this was a good anything. Like it was just like it was there, had some cool scenes, but like it's just not going to be memorable. I said the same thing about. I'm not going to name a movie because I almost started an argument about that. There was another movie a bunch of us went to go see once that was like not a big movie, but they're like, oh man, it was so good. I'm like, yeah, but see, this thing happened when it was supposed to be the turning point, and the way they handled it was so corny that I think it's going to cause this movie to be forgotten. No one remembers this movie now, and it came out last year.
Yeah.
Like no one's talking about it, and they're like, it's gonna be a classic. I'm like, see, I think it could have had an opportunity, but they screwed up that moment that would have made it like the classic, And even the people I had the argument with don't even remember that even happened. Like the movie happened or anything. I was like, okay, sure. So I think this is going to be, like you said, like this whole thing. I think the idea that this franchise started the superhero thing will be like the one footnote, but the movies will just kind of like, what happened in that one? Was that the one Hugh Jackman was in?
Or if people go, oh, that X-Men, then let's go back to the beginning and watch that, and they watch the first one and be like, ooh. Like
Kind of like I
I
watch Captain Planet series now. I'm like, wasn't that such a great? What? Nah, sure. I mean, it was on a Saturday morning.
There's nothing else on. That's why I watched it.
But the idea of it was real. Like the memory I have of it that's skewed from when I was 6, that was pretty good. If we could make the series that I remembered, not the one that existed. You know.
I feel like that show was kind of like a show I had to sit through just to watch the shows I wanted to watch.
Oh, really? So at
It's
the
like
time,
Power Rangers.
I remember loving the show, but I go back and watch it, I'm like, oh.
I felt that was goofy when I was little.
Yeah.
This is weird.
But,
Anyway, we should wrap it up.
yeah.
We went on to way too long for this simple of a movie.
Thanks for hanging out. You just watched this for I don't know how long, talk about like how meh the movie was.
Meh.
I would almost venture to say, besides the visuals, you got everything you would have gotten from seeing the movie right now.
True.
Because meh.
That's meh.
I don't know. Stay tuned for more stuff where we talk about Swamp Thing succeeding so much and other discussions. And Beatles.
Yeah, stick around for don't stick around. Just listen in next week, and we'll be probably doing probably a few of the newer things that are coming out.
And then after that, we'll have Spider-Man.
That's right, Spider-Man. There's a bunch of TV stuff. The Shield.
Shield. We should talk about Shield next time.
Oh yeah.
A lot more Marvel stuff to come at you next week. So stay tuned.
Thank you.